Hey, welcome back to my channel, Jeff's Cave of Cool Books. Of course, I am Jeff, and I wanted to do a tag video for a change. Now, usually I'm not into tag videos, no offense to those who like doing them. I've just never really been overly compelled to do one before now. But when my buddy Steve at Heroic Book Adventures recently did the 10 Untouched Books Tag, I was inspired to do one of my own. Now, this tag was created by Rainier's Books, and I'll have a link to his initial video down below in the description. Many others have since joined in with this tag, including a very funny one from Steve Donahue, that lasted barely a minute, with the implication that, of course, nothing on his shelves has been unread by him. Again, the whole point of this tag is to choose some books, 10 books from your shelves that you have had for at least a year or more and you haven't touched. I guess you haven't, perhaps you've touched them. You had to touch them when you bought them, of course, but maybe even peruse them a little bit, but you haven't read them. And of course, the idea is to inspire yourself and maybe others to read more from your own shelves rather than buying new books. And I've shown a lot of my books recently on my channel. I know my channel is not very old, but I've taken tours around some of my fantasy and science fiction and mystery and spy and adventure collections. And there are plenty of books in those that I haven't touched as far as reading completely. That I could talk about, but I wanted to talk about a few from the other corners of my book collection that I haven't shown yet on my channel. So I pulled a few titles out that I'm interested in reading at some point. The reason they're still in my collection is I'm interested in reading them. I just haven't got around to them yet. So let's dig into it. So this is my first title, and I've long been a fan of P.G. Wodehouse and his Jeeves and Wooster stories, of course. But I haven't read any Blandings Castle stories, or in this case, Uncle Fred in the Springtime. Now, Uncle Fred in the Springtime is Wodehouse's first book in the Blandings cycle. This was written in 1939, and it's about a typical souffle of humor and tons of things going on. And it looks really fun. This Penguin edition came to me in the kind of, which sometimes occurs, and I have mentioned a few times on my channel. I teach at a couple of universities here in Japan, in Osaka. And one of them, at my main university job, there's a table where, various teachers, maybe they're leaving Japan and they dump some books that they're out of their collection they don't want to take with them. And occasionally I can score some free books. And occasionally they're in decent shape. And this one, has a bit of a bent spine, but perfectly readable shape. And for free, I'll take it. So Uncle Fred in the Springtime, just a little bit I'll read in the back here to give you a sense, if you haven't read any P.G. Wodehouse, of the kind of absurd humor and busy events going on. Pongo Twistleton is in a state of financial embarrassment, and it's not for the first time. Uncle Fred, meanwhile, has been asked by Lord Emsworth of Blandings to foil a plot to relieve him of the Empress, his much-adored prize pig. I guess that's the pig here. Along with Polly Pott, daughter of dear old Mustard, they form a deputation to Blandings Castle, a party of innocent impostors bent on doing, quote, a bit of good for two loving hearts. For, as Uncle Fred himself admits, there are no limits, literally none, to what I can accomplish in the springtime. So Uncle Fred, I guess, is the hero. Again, I'm used to the Jeeves and Wooster books. I haven't read any Uncle Fred or even Smith, spelled with the P, Smith books, or many of the other wonderful, like I mentioned, souffle, light, fluffy reads that Wodehouse is famous for. I like this quote from Evelyn Waugh here about Wodehouse. For Wodehouse, there has been no fall of man. The gardens of Blandings Castle are the original gardens of Eden from which we are all exiled. And anyway, I'm looking forward to getting into this. This looks fun. Wodehouse is almost always fun. and this is from a good high point in his career. So I'll check that out at one stage. Another book I got, it's kind of a movie tie-in edition, but there was a movie made after the book was published, and this is A Boy 10 Feet Tall. Nice Valentine edition there. The adventure story of the year, A Boy's Incredible Journey 5,000 Miles Through the Heart of Africa. And this was made into a movie with Edward G. Robinson as a big game hunter who at one stage assists the boy. But this is a fiction work, but it might be based on real events. It's got a cool little map there. Basically, there was this boy whose parents are killed in some violence in Suez in 1956, and he's left orphaned, and he tries to make his way down to some relatives in Durban, South Africa, and he goes on a trek and finds adults who will both help him and that are trying to not help him, who are trying to hurt him or deceive him, and how his innate resourcefulness helps him get through that. Anyway, this is pretty cool. This was published in, like I said, 1961. And this edition, though, unfortunately, some numbnut scribbled around in here. Previous owner, looks like a kid got a hold of it, probably. Anyway, this is by the way, this is by W.H. Canaway, who also wrote some books, The Hunter and the Horns. He was born in England and served in special intelligence in the Near East in World War II. His latest novel, The Hunter and the Horns, which has also been sold for motion picture production. So anyway, I haven't seen the movie. I'd kind of like to. I've been curious about it for a while, and that's why I picked up this book. And that looks pretty cool. I like adventure novels, especially set in, the 20th century or even earlier. So that's the next one I have on my 10 Untouched Books. Next, I believe I showed this. This is kind of going against what I mentioned earlier, trying to pick out books I haven't shown. I might have shown this very briefly during one of my earlier sci-fi shelf tour videos, but this is Lord Valentine's Castle by Robert Silverberg, the first in the Madripoor Chronicles or Madripoor series. And this one was published in 1980. Robert Silverberg, of course, a very famous author, mostly of famous or well known for his science fiction works. Now this one I do remember starting. I probably read like the first 50 pages or so years and years ago. It's a thick one. It's 450 pages or so. I remembered it being quite a dense bit of world building, but very interesting and fascinating. I'm not quite sure why I stopped it. I must have got distracted by something else. I'm kind of a mental gadfly that way sometimes, or at least I have been in the past. Probably still am. Anyway, I want to get back to this at some point. Now, the next book, I guess this is number 4 in my 10 Untouched Books list, is The Drunken Forest by Gerald Durrell. Now, Gerald Durrell was the younger brother of the famous novelist Lawrence Durrell. And Gerald Durrell doesn't write novels. He didn't write novels. He passed away about 30 years ago. But he was an excellent, excellent writer. He must have inherited some of his brother's gift for descriptive language and prose, but he is most well known for writing nature books, especially traveling. He collected animals for zoos back in the 40s and 50s and beyond. He started his own zoo on the Isle of Jersey, and he's a British writer, and his most famous work is My Family and Other Animals, which is just a wonderful, wonderful, glorious kind of humorous and gorgeously written reminiscence memoir of growing up with his family. His mom moved his family, his 2 brothers and his sister and young Gerald, to Corfu in the interwar years. Basically from 1935 to 1939, they were forced to leave when World War II broke out, and being British citizens, wasn't safe for them to remain there, which really you could tell tore at young Jerry Durrell's heart. And it's just a lovely reminiscence. He went on to write 2 more kind of sequels. I have them all collected here in the Corfu trilogy. Somewhere back in the States, I have one of my copies of My Family and Other Animals. Highly, highly recommend his books, but especially that first one. So beloved and well known that it's been turned into at least 3 or 4 series for British television. The most recent one being the Durrells, which ran for 3 seasons, I believe, not so long ago on the BBC. I believe BBC, could have been ITV. I'll confirm. Anyway, Drunken Forest. Most of Durrell's books were I guess a kind of memoir, but more focused on the amusing escapades of him going out into the wilderness and capturing animals. I know this is probably not so politically correct these days, but he was bent on capturing them for zoos and to preserve posterity. He treated the animals very well, as best as he could. He loved animals with all his heart, and he sometimes crossed paths with a young David Attenborough, who was also traveling around and doing nature documentaries, although he wasn't capturing animals, he was just filming them. Anyway, I've read several of Durrell's books, including 3 Tickets to Adventure and the Bafut Beagles, and wonderful stuff. And I haven't read this one, The Drunken Forest. Now this was published in 1956. It's another Penguin edition. Number has the spine has seen some wear and tear and you can barely read it. In fact, you can't even see the G on Gerald Durrell's name there on the title. But most of these later Penguins had some great maps and nice illustrations of some of the animals that he comes across, or Gerald on a horse going around and encountering several creatures. Beautiful little illustrations there. This is about his time in the Argentine Pampas and the little known Chaco territory of Paraguay. And he's, I wouldn't want to say anthropomorphizing, if I can spit that word out, the animals that he collects, but he definitely captures their character and his travails in trying to find them, capture them, keep them healthy and alive as he brings them back to England. All right, there's a little nice picture of an owl there. Anyway, if you're not familiar with Gerald Durrell's work, I highly recommend it. He's very entertaining to read. He's a very good writer. He was very successful. And, this is young, adventurous Gerald. And later in life, he keeps writing and traveling to places, no longer maybe trying to capture animals, just trying to enjoy nature. Very fun. I have some more here. The Overloaded Ark and the New Noah and Menagerie Manor, talking about how he's starting his own zoo, and he had like an old estate that he bought, and he kind of turned it into a zoo for a while, etc. The Zoo in My Luggage over here, and The Whispering Land, one of his later ones, which is about Patagonia, and again back into Argentina. Anyhow, on to number 5. This is the first in the Commissario Brunetti series of Italian police procedurals by Donna. This is Death at La Fenice. I believe this is about the death of an opera singer. And I've had this one for quite a while. I bought this one in Japan here. This is the first of what I believe is a 32-book series now. I'm not sure if Miss Leon is still alive, still writing these books, but 32 is a good run in the mystery series. And this is a crime series set in Venice, and looks quite interesting. I haven't got into these yet. I've heard good things about this series, and I like mysteries in general, police procedurals as well. This is again a typical, maybe a May Gray-ish sort of detective who is married and kind of plods along, but has occasional moments of inspiration and where he mulls over a particular clue or something that stands out in the case and eventually solves it. That's my understanding of it anyway. I haven't read this one yet to know for sure, but I will get to this at some point, as I love mysteries. Next, going back probably to the earliest of all the books I'm talking about, that I will be mentioning here, and that is Roughing It by Mark Twain. And I believe this is a Signet Classic edition. Again, this is another one I picked up free from the Leavings Take If You Want table at my university. And this was published in 1872. And this is about Mark Twain, young greenhorn journalist traveling around the Wild West in his various comic misadventures. And looks quite fun, and also over 400 pages of, pretty small type, and just haven't got around to it yet. So I do like Twain, and what I've read a lot of his short stories back in college. I haven't read any of his novels, and that's a glaring omission, not having read Huckleberry Finn. I need to get to that at some stage as well, but I don't actually own a copy of that here with me now. Anyway, I'm sure I'm going to be roasted on the proverbial fire for admitting not having read Huckleberry Finn. The next one is another kind of wilderness adventure story. This one is a fictionalized account, but and also with some cool illustrations. And I found this one. This is probably the most recent one on my shelf. Maybe a little over a year I've had this one. And this is Quest of the Snow Leopard by Roy Chapman Andrews. Now, Roy Chapman Andrews was a explorer, naturalist, paleontologist, I believe, or at least a dinosaur fossil hunter. He apparently was one of the inspirations for the Indiana Jones character, although that's never been proven, but certainly one of the very adventurous fellow. At one point, Andrews also served as the director of the American Museum of Natural History, and he wrote a number of books. His name was new to me when I found this, but I just loved that cover. And again, it's got some nice blue, kind of greenish blue text block, and some nice illustrations here. I love these. I love books when they have illustrations in them. Just something about some illustrations in books at the start of each chapter that works for me. But this is about a young man joining a more seasoned explorer on the hunt to find, not to kill, I don't believe, but to capture perhaps the elusive snow leopard. So, rousing and rugged adventure as it really happened when two explorers ventured deep into China's interior. And this is a Tempo Books, published in 1962 by the arrangement with the Viking Press. Now it shows copyright 1951 and 1955, so perhaps he revised it in 1955. But sadly, Roy Chapman Andrews passed away in 1960, so right before this particular edition was published. There's that cool little logo, Tempo Books. Has anyone here seen many Tempo Books? This is one of the only ones I've ever seen. Anyway, that seems very cool. Seems like a fictionalized account of a real exploration that he went on. Book number 8 is by Philip Jose Farmer, and it's this trade paperback of To Your Scattered Bodies Go. This was published in 1971. This is the first in the Riverworld saga. Now, Philip Jose Farmer is an interesting writer. He liked to break boundaries, especially of sexuality and such, back in that Silver Age science fiction era. But his writing, I've found, is kind of very straightforward. Not, I don't know, some of his other work I've read has been pretty much just, not unpolished, just kind of very straightforward, but full of creative ideas. Let me just read the premise. All those who ever lived on earth have found themselves resurrected, healthy, young, and naked as newborns on the grassy banks of a mighty river in a world unknown. Miraculously provided with food, but with no clues to the meaning of their strange new afterlife, billions of people from every period of Earth's history and prehistory must start again. Sir Richard Francis Burton would be the first to glimpse the incredible way station, a link between worlds. This forbidden sight would spur the renowned 19th century explorer to uncover the truth. Along with a remarkable group of compatriots, including Alice Liddell Hargreaves, the Victorian girl who was the inspiration for Alice in Wonderland, an English-speaking Neanderthal, a World War II Holocaust survivor, and a wise extraterrestrial, Burton sets sail on the magnificent river, his mission to confront humankind's mysterious benefactors and learn the true purpose, innocent or evil, of Riverworld. Now I know my buddy Nick at the Book Graveyard hated, with the capital H, hated what he read of the Riverboat series and didn't care for Farmer's writing at all. I have read some cool stuff by Farmer. I have The Stone God Wakens in my sci-fi collection, and that's a cool post-apocalyptic novel just full of imagination and weird creatures. And of course, I'm a big fan of Philip Jose Farmer's work about categorizing the Doc Savage novels and characters, etc. Doc Savage, An Apocalyptic Life. That's a fantastic book, which as a Doc Savage fan, I consult frequently. But, you know, as a science fiction writer in general, I haven't read a lot of his work. So I need to get to this at one point, see if it deserves to be thrown in the fire, like Nick was suggesting, or I might side with the fans of it. So it was a popular series that ran for several books. Okay, got to finish up here. I have The Ballad of Frankie Silver by Sharon McCrum. Now, Sharon McCrum writes these kind of North Carolina set mystery novels. Now, this one seems quite interesting. This one was the fifth in her, the Ballad series, published in 1998. And this is one of those interesting ones that I kind of like, these that have these flip beginning papers, whatever you call those. I'm not up on the terminology. As usual in more modern books, lots and lots and lots and lots of critical praise for her work. She's also, other works in this series include The Rosewood Casket, She Walks These Hills, The Hangman's Beautiful Daughter. Frankie Silver is interesting. Apparently there's a two-pronged, or sounds interesting, there's a two-pronged plot line, both present day of the book and historical. So I'll read you a little bit of what it's about. In 1833, Frankie Silver became the first woman in North Carolina to be hanged for murder. But what really happened so long ago becomes an obsession for Sheriff Spencer Arrowwood, as the parallels between two crimes more than 100 years apart become as clear and as shocking as the single truth that joins two condemned souls. So I've heard good things about Miss McCrum, and a novel of mesmerizing beauty and power. So it's kind of looks like a rich sort mystery that's both historically based and contemporary. So I'll check that at some point. This is again another freebie found in the aforementioned free books table at my university. And now, finally, book number 10 is my one nonfiction entry. Oh, I guess I shouldn't say that because I suppose, Mark Twain's essays are probably highly fictionalized, but the Gerald Durrell book is basically nonfiction. But I guess nonfiction in the sense of a biography. And this is Blood and Thunder, The Life and Art of Robert E. Howard by Mark Finn. Now, I know there's a new book about a biography about Howard, which is getting praised to the high heavens by such as Michael K. Vaughan and others. William H. Oliver, I believe, wrote that one, and that looks great too. But before I dive into that one, I should really finish reading this. I've read a couple of snippets here and there. Finn, I've heard him speak on the Cromcast, a podcast about Robert E. Howard and other Weird Tales writers before, and he seems very knowledgeable and did a lot of research about Robert E. Howard. And this was originally published in 2006. It's got a map there of Texas in it, and of course various, I believe there's some photos in here. They're hard to find, but occasionally here's high school faculty, maybe Noveline Price, Howard's one-time girlfriend, is pictured in that. Anyway, and an interesting photo of Mr. Howard there on the back. Anyone who's watched this channel knows I'm a big admirer of Robert E. Howard. I recently filmed a video, which I'll be airing later, showing my Robert E. Howard collection, what I have here, also what I have back in the States, which is more numerous than this, actually. But, you know, dinky compared to some other booktubers' collections. But big fan of Robert E. Howard. and I need to read this book. I haven't read any nonfiction much in the way of nonfiction yet this year, book-wise. So I need to get on that and try to get to some of these before the year ends. I'm not going to promise to read all 10 of these, but I'll try to get to a couple of them in 2025. Who knows? Again, it might just be, I kind of follow my whims when it comes to the reading and my reading life, but I will try to make an effort to get to some of these. I think that's the whole point of this tag, and this might be the one and only tag you see me do. I can't promise anything there, but I hope you found something of interest here, and I hope you are inspired to do your own version of this tag if you haven't already. So until the next time, take care and enjoy your reading. We'll see you again.